All right. Welcome back to another episode of World History is Our History. Of course, we're going to continue digging into the White History series a little bit further. But first, let me show off some of the little, merch that we're trying to kind of generate, get together. World History is Our History. Got the t shirt, got the little coffee mug, you know what I'm saying? Mm. Just to get that out there real quick. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to at Sister Gold 9241. She informed me in the comments that episode 3, the volume between myself and my co-host, my volume was too low, hers was too high, so I'm just gonna re-record that whole episode just to get that out there how it needs to be out there. All right, so with that said, we're about to go back through, and for those who ain't seen it yet, we about to touch on chapter 3, the UZ. All right, let's go on ahead and hop on in. So the UZ, also known as the Yuezhi or the Yankai. The neighbors of the UZ, the Zhang were a tribal confederation of nomadic peoples who, according to ancient Chinese sources, inhabited eastern Eurasian steppe from the 3rd century BC to late 1st century AD. Modu Chanyu, the supreme leader after 209 BC, founded the Zhang Empire. And we're going to get into that, a little bit deeper on another episode as well. After overthrowing their previous overlords, the UZ, the Zhang became the dominant power on the steppes of East Asia, centered on the Mongolian plateau. The Zhang were also active in areas now part of Siberia, Inner Mongolia, Gansu, and I guess that's what, Xinjiang or something like that. Their relations with adjacent Chinese dynasties to the southwest were complex, alternating between various periods of peace, war, and subjugation. All right. So going further, Zhang Yu continued. Ultimately, the Zhang were defeated by the Han Dynasty in a centuries-long conflict, which led to the Confederation splitting in two and forcible resettlement of large numbers of Zhang within Han borders. During the 16 Kingdoms era, one of the quote-unquote 5 barbarians, they founded the dynastic states of Han Zhao, northern Liang, and Huzi in northern China. So we're going, like I said, dig in a little bit further and kind of find out a little bit more what's going on with all of these different groups. But clearly, Han Dynasty, that's China, or at least that's the beginnings of China off rip. All right, so anyway, attempts to associate the Zhang with the nearby Sakas and Sarmatians were once controversial, and we covered those in parts 10 and parts 12 of this series. However, archaeogenetics has confirmed their interaction with the Zhang and also their relation to the Huns. Another thing we'll catch a little bit later. The identity of the ethnic core of Zhang has been a subject of varied hypotheses. Because only a few words, mainly titles and personal names, were preserved in the Chinese sources, the name Zhang may be cognate with that of the Huns and or the Huna, although this is disputed. Moving on. According to a study by Alexander Savalev and Chun Woon Jang, published in 2020 in the journal Evolutionary Human Sciences by Cambridge University Press, the predominant part of the Zanyu population is likely to have spoken Turkic. Let that marinate for a minute. However, genetic studies found a mixture of haplogroups from Western and Eastern Eurasian origins that suggest a large genetic diversity within and possibly multiple origins of Zanyu elites. The Turkic related component may be brought by Eastern Eurasian genetic substratum. So they saying a whole bunch of high level, terminology, but it sounds like the Zanyu they might have been mulatto, they might have been, Asian, or they might have been Asian and Caucasian mixed. We already know that the Turks, or the people that would become known as Turks, were mostly Asian, but within that Turkic community, there was a lot of admixture between Caucasians and Asians. Just another thing that this article is touching on once again. Found a mixture of haplogroups from Western and Eastern Eurasia. Andre Wink states that the Zanyu probably spoke an early form of Turkic. Even if Zanyu were not Turks nor Turkic speaking, they were in close contact with Turkic speakers very early on. It goes on further to say, Craig Benjamin sees the Zanyu as either Proto-Turks, which somebody else in the comments drop that in the comments, or Proto-Mongols, who possibly spoke a language related to Dingling. All right. Boom. All right, here we go. Chinese sources link several Turkic peoples to the Zanyu. According to the Book of Zhao, History of Northern Dynasties, Tang Dian, New Book of Tang, the Gok Turks and the ruling Ashina clan was a component of the Zanyu Confederation. However, the Ashina, surnamed Gok Turks, were also stated to be they were mixed barbarians. So let's just hit the brakes right there. Whenever you hear barbarians, I want you just to close your eyes and think about that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan the fucking Barbarian. I gotta keep bringing this shit up. When motherfuckers in Hollywood do movies, there's an education, an entertainment component, but the more clever directors and writers want to slide in the education component sometimes. In that Conan the Barbarian movie, he was a white slave. He was a barbarian. He was also within goddamn a rock's throw to some Chinese people or some Asians that clearly taught the nigga how to use the sword better than he was using it. Let's not get that fucked up. Eurasians, Asians, Caucasians, motherfuckers were neighbors. That's why they got the Asian in the Caucasian. You know what I mean? So for these ignorant motherfuckers in the comments talking about so what and all of this is history that your dumbass might want to absorb to expand your motherfucking knowledge and awareness and sense of self in the bigger picture, in the bigger scheme of things. You know what I mean? Anyway, so they clearly are telling you that they were mixed barbarians. The Yuezhi were also identified as barbarians. So now we're gonna go further. That it goes on to say that these mixed barbarians, or Zahu, I guess that's the the term that say mixed barbarians, the Zahu who fled from Pingliang, now modern Gansu province, China, or from the obscure Suo state north of Zhangyu. The Uyghur Khagans claim descent from the Zhangyu according to Chinese history. Wei Shu, the founder of the Uyghur Khaganate, was descended from a Zhangyu ruler. So they're giving you some more interesting information there. The Book of Wei states that the Yuban descended from the remnants of the northern Zhangyu Chanyu's tribe, and that the Yuban's language and customs resemble Gaosh, another name of the Tieli. That's another one we have to dig into. Book of Jin lists 19 southern Zhangyu tribes who entered former Yan's borders, the 14th being the Alat, and that's spelled A-L-A-T. Alat being glossed piebald horse in Old Turkic. All right, so now it goes on to say, however, Chinese sources also ascribe Zhangyu origins to the para-Mongolic speaking Kumo-Z and Khitans. And that's Khitan spelled K-H-I-T-A-N-S. So now going further into the Book of Han, the Yuezhi. The Book of Han mentions the Yuezhi prior to their major migration of the 2nd century BC. Populations continue to occupy the Tarim Basin, avoiding the Great Eastern Central Takla Makan Desert. And these were commonly known to the Chinese as the Lesser Yuezhi, aka they were also known as the Tokharians. So now that we outline some of the neighbors and people that might be sort of affiliated, now we focusing laser beam back onto the Yuezhi themselves now. So the Tarim Basin, and I'm gonna throw maps up on here and all of that, when y'all run back through this, but the Tarim Basin is kind of a desert area right outside that little Great Wall of China border on the west of what we call China. There's the Gobi Desert, and then from the Gobi Desert, a little bit further west of that Gobi Desert is the Tarim Basin region, where the Yuezhi were basically setting up shop. And if I'm correct, if you also want to look up, which I'll probably drop down here, a link, there is another documentary called White Mummies of Asia, where they found 5,000 and 6,000 year old Caucasian mummies with red hair, blonde hair, blue eyes in the Tarim Basin, perfectly preserved because they were in the desert. Ta-da! So there it is. All right, let's keep this thing moving. The book states The great Yuezhi was a nomadic horde, which the lesser Yuezhi clearly had never been. So, from the perspective of the Chinese who have documented these Caucasian tribes, which they kind of, I guess, designated the greater Yuezhi and the lesser Yuezhi. It goes on and says that they moved about following their cattle. They had the same customs as those of the Zanyu, as their soldiers numbered more than 100,000. They were strong and despised the Zanyu. In the past, they lived in the region between Dunhuang and Qilian. Dunhuang is in the northernmost area of the modern Gansu province to the east of the Tarim Basin. So there that is. While the Qilian mountain range borders central Gansu on its western edge. Archaeology is yet to support the claim of Greater Yuezhi occupation around Dunhuang, although steppe nomads are notoriously hard to pin down archaeologically. However, the hostile Zanyu Confederation already occupied at least part of these lands, even though during this period, the Greater Yuezhi were the most powerful nomadic group on the northwestern Chinese plains. So, these are some other things to consider. The early Caucasians were nomads, even though they, the story, at least from a historical viewpoint, the story begins here in China or right outside or right on the inside of the edges of the what would become the Chinese borders. They were there because this is where they first are documented. So let's go on ahead and keep this thing moving. Various detailed, overly complicated breakdowns have been provided elsewhere online in order to try and provide an explanation of the name Yuezhi or Yu Qi. The literal translation from Chinese is moon people, which is often dismissed as being meaningless, but no one has an issue when Native Americans use the word paleface to describe Caucasians, the white man. And if you're white, don't feel bad because it is what it is. You know what I mean? If you are dealing with a darker people and they see a lighter people, that's you're gonna say something slick like that. You know what I mean? Regardless if it was meant to be derogatory, whatever the meaning of moon people was, that's how they described lighter people. The moon is light and white compared to the sun, which is bright but yellow. It's a darker tint. You feel me? This is what you got to understand. Put your thinking cap on. In the same way in history, when the Europeans, or should I say the modern Europeans, the white people at that time who became the modern Europeans, when they started to really encounter more of us on that side, they called us Moors. You know, basically to say a dark person. More moon people, sun people, people who can chill in the sun and not get skin cancer. The moon people. You feel me? This is what you got to put together. All right, so let's go and get back to what they talking about here. It is a reasonable, direct description of a white-faced people by a people who have a naturally darker complexion. The Chinese applied the Yuezhi label both to the Tocharians and the Indo-Iranians, the lesser Yuezhi and the greater Yuezhi, respectively. So it's reasonable to assume that they have found the description to be apt, bearing in mind that the fact that the simplest explanation is often the correct one. It seems that the Chinese were talking about people with faces that were the color of the moon. The Yuezhi literally were moon people, otherwise known as pale faces. So there that is right there. And for those who, want to possibly get in their feelings and not think analytically and put on their thinking caps, when you look at like figures such as Hitler and all of that, they doing the same thing that I'm doing. I'm just studying world history. That man back in that time studied the culture of his people who were Caucasians and traced them back from Germany back into Eurasia and made the same connections. That's why you hear the phrase Aryan Nation and all of that type of bullshit. That's where all of that rah-rah shit come from. Even here in America, the Caucasians, the ones that's all the way white power to the death with the tattoos and the this and this and that, they hollering Aryan Nation. They identify as Aryans, Aryan Brotherhood, because that's the connection. The Aryans and the Arianas, who are also another white tribe that's associated with the greater and lesser Yuezhi. But, episode by episode, we're gonna piece this together to where there ain't no question, there ain't no no. This is the historians, the archaeologists, the researchers putting all this together. I'm just, once again, what's the word research? It means to look again. They put the work to put this shit here, and I'm coming back through to look at what they talking about. And then I'm looking at a couple of other sources to see, to confirm, corroborate, or deny what the first and second source is saying. That's all I'm doing. All right, boom. Let's just keep this thing on moving. So here, I'll probably just throw some couple of little pictures just to symbolize historically what sun people look like versus moon people. Moving on, so the Yuezhi, also known as the Yuchi, also called Indo-Sith, ancient people who ruled in Bactria in India from about 128 BCE to about 450 CE, Christian era. The Yuezhi are first mentioned in Chinese sources at the beginning of the 2nd century BC as nomads living in the western part of Gansu province and northwestern China. So the other key part to piece together, as I mentioned, India. The Aryanas were a group of these Caucasians, a Caucasian tribe. I wouldn't even call them a tribe. I would call them a small civilization, sub-civilization of the Yuezhi that branched off and left and went south to conquer parts of India at that time. And those, once again, those were the Aryanas. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the Aryanas on what was really done and what was the fallout of what they done in northern India. And this is, shout out to at Jerome Buckley, who showed love in the comments. So, I'll throw another map on over here, kind of just showing the region so you could visually see with your own eyes the research that was put down and the illustrations showing how these Yuezhi, the greater and lesser Yuezhi, were literally camped right outside the border of China, the border of, at least in this map that I'm gonna put up, of the Han Dynasty, China at that time. So the Han Dynasty borders their encampment area from the southeast. Look, I can't. Yeah, boom, from the southeast, and then the Mongolians border their little encampment area from the northwest. So my bad, southeast, northeast, whatever. The map is gonna show it all what I'm trying to show. But basically, Mongolians to the north, Chinese to the east and southeast, Indians directly. Well, once you get past the Proto-Tibetan or the Tibetan tribes and cross over the Himalayas to the south, then you had the Indians down there. And then, of course, to the west, you have other um, Caucasian tribes in this area of the Tarim Basin. And it shows the migration patterns from China, from the outside of China, the west border of China, making their way further west into what it looks like is modern day Kazakhstan. And some of them even migrate and start to make their way towards what we would consider southern Russia. But let's keep this thing moving. So, the greater Yuezhi evacuation of their lands on the borders of the Chinese kingdom continues. This time period is now 165 to 160 BC. So now, due to what they about to break down in these notes, they had to evacuate their lands, which was on the border of the Chinese kingdom, which I've been telling y'all, turning from a trickle into a flood. So the same way all these cats from Central America are trying to flood into the United States, these boys is flooding up out of China. They moving like that. It ain't like one or two. They moving deep. They mob deep. Their westwards migration triggers a slow domino effect of barbarian movement in Central Asia. That's what it's saying word for word. As they probably followed the route through the Zungarian Basin and the Zungarian Gate to penetrate the Kazakh steppe beyond. So now they enter into what will become Kazakhstan. This will see them enter the Saka controlled plains to the northeast of Fergana. So now they about to encounter some other white tribes that was already chilling, doing their thing, minding their business. You know what I mean? But that's another story for another day, I guess. But anyway, along the way, the greater UZ have bumped up against their former neighbors, the Wusun, and a successful attack is launched against them. So they on the move. They migrating from China, trying to get away from them boys, because between whatever China cooking up and whatever the Mongolians is starting to cook up over there, they like, nah, we got to get up out of here. They sliding over here, and as they slide over there, oh, we got beef with them. So now they setting it on the Wusun. Like, they got a lot of shit going on. So apparently the attack against the Wusun was successful. It says the westward migration continues, however, possibly with the Wusun tagging along. So even though they done beefed with the Wusun and fought with them again, I guess what they say, We done whooped up on y'all. Y'all can roll with us now. So I guess maybe the Wusun might have been absorbed and joined the migration train, just like the same way. Once again, people um, from Central all the way down to El Salvador, Guatemala, they starting to come through to try to migrate to come up here. People from different spots along the way. Mexico, they like, well, shoot, we gonna join too and come on through. That's what they doing. It's no different. So uh, we got the UZ. We got them beefing with the Wusun. Then the Wusun, I guess they done made up, and now they moving on the little caravan further west. And then it says by about 160 BC, the UZ have encountered the outlying Saka groups on the eastern Kazakh steppe, primarily in the Ili River Valley, immediately to the south of Lake Balkash, which they now occupy. So now you got the UZ, you got the Wusun, who apparently were cool enough to, after they finished fighting, they done tagged along, and now they see the Saka people. This is a whole other civilization, a whole other white tribe. Once again, that's their minding their business, and they see these cats rolling up. What's gonna happen now? All right, boom. So, as I was saying, you had the UZ, the Wusan, they migrating west, and now as they head into the Saka territory, and which is pretty much modern day Kazakhstan, is saying that the Saka were easily dominated by the greater UZ due to the sheer weight of numbers that they had. They came in so deep. What I mean? They already talked about a little bit earlier in the notes that these boys had like 100,000 soldiers, barbarians, rough and tough, ready to kill and take what's in your wallet. You feel me? They came like that. So the Saka, it looked like, you know, they ain't really had nothing for them. They just was like, you got it. So, all right, back to the notes. If I'm just sometimes I go off script, but anyway, it says while the Saka are at the eastern edge of their vast swath of tribal territories, which stretch all the way back to the shoreline of the Caspian Sea. So it's detailing, I guess, from the the eastern Kazakh steppe to the Caspian Sea. So I'll try to, throw a little map or something over there for y'all so y'all can see kind of the extent of the Saka's little extent of their little mini empire situation before the UZ rolled in. Another defeat is inflicted upon the greater UZ, this time by an alliance of the Wu Sun and the Zan Yu. So these boys, they just been migrating, traveling, fighting, beefing. So it looked like they just got too much shit going on. Barbarian attack. That's what I put for the title of this page of notes. 140 to 130 BC. So off the rip, the greater you see done caught like a L because the Wusan teamed up with the Zan Yu. It says the Wusan chief would appear to be the driving force in this alliance. This serves to hurry them along the westwards migration, pushing them off the Saka plains, which they have only just seized. So basically, they beat the Sakas in battle, but then before they could even pop the champagne and celebrate, Wusan and the Zan Yu done teamed up and then came and ran their ass out of an area that they just conquered. Like nigga, they ain't even get to unpack luggage, nothing. So It goes on further. Instead, they are forced to enter Transoxiana from the direction of the Dayun, the Chinese term for Fergana. Circle back to Fergana. They penetrated Sogdiana from its northern reaches, initially dominating the Sakas who were already there. So it sounded like they beat one group of Sakas. The Wu San and the Zan Yu teamed up, got on their ass, ran them out of the first little area of the Saka territory, and then now they retreating from these forces. But whilst they retreating, they run up into Sogdiana and Fergana, and then defeat another group of sagas who were just over there once again chilling, minding their business. So it's a they like I said, this shit is messy. They just, you know, these boys they really barbarians for real. War and conflict is what they just been going through back to back to back. It looked like. So, it goes on, and let me see. So afterwards, they followed the Sakas in invading the former Greek Empire region of Bactria, also known as Tahia or Tasia in Chinese records, around 140 BC. So it looked like, you know, if you can't beat them, join them, or if you beat them, still join them. This might have been the beginnings of white supremacy, because once again these boys are surrounded and they in constant warfare with Asians, whether it's the Mongolians or the Chinese at this point. And then they also fight in other white tribes, but as they fight these other white tribes, it look like they'll fight another white tribe, but then they come together with them for a minute, and then they might beef again, and then they come together with some other white tribe they come across, because at the end of the day, all these people in the comments that be talking that we are the world bullshit, kill it. Color means everything. It meant everything back then, and it mean everything now. Like, we may be enemies, but we are both Caucasian. We both dealing with potential Asian enemies all around us, at least on this side of the globe. We might need to put our shit aside and click up. So that's what I'm getting to next. So it just said that even though they were beefing with the Sakas, another tribe of Caucasians, they clearly got together with their ass and helped them in invading the former Greek region of Bactria. So that's there on the records. Don't argue with me, argue with the goddamn historians. So next, this is where Chinese and Western classical records converge and allow the greater Yuezhi to be identified with the migrant arrivals in Bactria, who are mistakenly referred to as Tocharians. The Tocharians are the lesser Yuezhi. So the greater Yuezhi, they greater for a reason, because they wherever they go, they whooping ass for the most part as they come through. You know what I'm saying? The lesser Yuezhi are probably more passive. They just trying to live in peace, you know, wherever they happen to migrate at. They ain't trying to be in full-fledged warfare out the gate, you know, fighting niggas every 2 minutes and shit like that. So basically, the greater Yuezhi are mistakenly identified or referred to as the Tocharians, which is the lesser Yuezhi. Anyway, at about that time, or about the time of the death of the Indo-Greek king Menander around 130 BC, they managed to terminate Greek rule in Bactria. Hellenic cities there appeared to survive for some time, as does the well organized agricultural system. The general area of Bactria soon comes to be called Tokaristan. All right. And that's going to wrap up. But this is the mixed remastered version of White History Part 3, the Yuezhi. And I'll catch y'all next time.